Okay, so we'll get started here. Second to last session of the conference. I know everybody is eager to get going, and we'll make sure this is a beneficial one for you if you're looking for career readiness courses that are app-based to help the instruction of your students. So a little bit about what we'll cover today. Start with a brief introduction on Learning Upgrade, who we are and what we do. Then we'll get right into our career readiness courses. And so we'll be able to talk about those and how they work into the overall Learning Upgrade app. So for those that have used Learning Upgrade or heard about it, our other two sessions at the conference were on our ESL track. And so we have a full 7-course ESL track for students that are learning English as a second language. And then we also have our GED HSE track. And so all of those are included in the Learning Upgrade app. The big reason for us developing these career readiness courses is a lot of students were looking for what to do next. And so they would go through our English and our math at their adult schools in an ABE program, ESL program, or HSE program. And then once they would get up to full proficiency in English and math, the teachers and the students were starting to look for additional resources that had the same format, engaging with songs, video, and games. And so we started with digital literacy, which we'll cover today. And then we also developed our work life skills and our financial literacy. Our newest one, which isn't included in most career readiness, but will be available to the students, is we have a new health literacy course coming out in 2 months. And then we also have a citizenship course. So if any of your students are pursuing naturalization, all of our courses, I think we have 24 now, are included in each one of the student accounts. For all of you attending today, you will get a free Learning Upgrade license. So even though the focus of today is on career readiness, your students will be able to use that. But if you would also like to utilize our other coursework, or if you have teachers at your site that you'd like to share this with, we'd be more than happy to expand access, and everybody will get a free license to use that. So today it's me. I'm actually joined by Belen and Dan, our partners at New Readers Press. So we're Learning Upgrade, and our partners are New Readers Press and Adult Education. Vinod had to go to Chicago, and then Haneen wasn't able to make it. So it's just me, and you're in decent hands. Maybe not as good as if it was all three of us, but I think I can hold it. And so at Learning Upgrade, our focus is delivering life-changing education. So I talked about our primary focus and how we got into adult ed, and that really was with our English, ESL, and our math. And then we had our test prep for the HSE side, and then our newest courses, these career readiness courses, will be what we are covering today. So when you think about Learning Upgrade, it really is these 3 parts. So primary focus today is going to be on our Breakthrough app. And the focus there is not just our content, but how we teach. Really, when it comes down to it, time on task is what drives student progress. And because we have an engaging app, we use songs, video, games, and animations to teach. Students spend a lot more time utilizing the courses. And so you have your time in the classroom. You can only do so much in the classroom. You can ask them to do other things. And Learning Upgrade can be one of those supplemental tools that you'll find they're using multiple hours a day, and that time really adds up. And that's what we call binge learning. And so binge learning for us is just the same thing that you're familiar with binge watching. Someone recommends a Netflix show to you. You watch the pilot episode, you get into it, and before you know it, in a week, you have the entire first season finished. So our goal is to make learning like that. They get into Learning Upgrade, they take an initial assessment, they're placed in the appropriate course, and because it's individualized and self-paced, they can work whenever it fits into their schedule. But more importantly, they have something that they can enjoy doing at 1 in the morning, some students 3 or 4 in the morning, when they're taking their kids to sporting events, when they're at the doctor's office. Their smartphone will now provide access wherever they are. We'll also just do a brief touch on the learning management system. So as I mentioned, everybody here gets a free license. With the learning management system, that's where you can track and monitor student progress. It's also where student accounts are created. So we have a really easy and streamlined process where students can get onboarded. You can either upload a spreadsheet or you can generate a self-enrollment code and students can enroll themselves. Our goal with the learning management system is to make things an easy lift. We know your schedules are busy, so we don't want to put any extra work on you. So we make sure that's really easy to use, but also powerful for those that need the reporting tools. And then finally, as I mentioned, free to start, affordable to grow. With Learning Upgrade, what we find is most of our programs Through the free pilot, we'll expand access to everybody. And because it's so easy to use and students love it, they're increasing access usually by 10x. So whatever programs you're currently using, if you are using any app-based or online courses for career readiness, ESL, HSE, almost every program we work with, because it's so easy to deploy Learning Upgrade and the students enjoy using it, they're seeing 10 times the number of learners use it. But more importantly, because of the 4x learning speed, the engagement and the binge learning, it's usually more than that for time on task for the students. So about us, we just hit our 4 million for students served across all of our different course areas. We're X Prize winners, and so that's one of the things through COABE. If you have heard about us, a couple years ago, we won the Adult Literacy X Prize, and so that was an ESL competition. If anybody could develop an app that would get measurable gains in adult ed, they used CASAS for low literate adults, so a 210 or below for their pre-test score. And then at the end of that 12,000 student field test, we won the $7 million grand prize for having the highest gains in a 6-month period. It's a great solution for all ages. And so usually when you say app, a lot of the times we think of our younger adults. But one of the things that's really nice is it works really well for our older adults as well. We work in a lot of libraries and literacy programs where we have senior citizens coming back into programs for the first time. And when you introduce digital tools, especially on a computer, there's a lot of digital literacy that requires a little more heavy training. And so this is how you start up the computer if it's not on. We're going to launch a browser. You're going to type this into a URL, or we're going to have a bookmark on the desktop. Then you're going to navigate here, and it's a little more complicated. What we're finding is that the vast majority of our senior citizens already have smartphones that they use every day. They might not use them as proficiently as some of our younger adults, but all of them know how to make calls, send text messages, download apps, and launch apps. So all of those gestures are built into our app, and it makes it really easy for any age to get started, plug in their credentials, and start learning right away. It also meets federal standards. So on the ABE, English and math side, everything is federally aligned. And then for our career readiness, there aren't a lot of standards outside of digital literacy. So digital literacy, we meet ISTE, North Star, and then there's a new innovative DQ standard from the European Union. And so our course fully aligns to all of that. And then on work life and financial literacy, there aren't any federal standards there, but we do align to some of the standards that are available out there. And then health literacy, our newest one, that was the biggest challenge. So World Health Organization has standards, a few others have standards, but they're constantly changing. So we did our best to put together a list of lessons and for that course that'll hopefully meet the needs of all of your students. One of the big ones that we focused on is the modern health. So what we find with a lot of our low literate adults and low income adults is they were having a really difficult time navigating a complex healthcare system. I think it's something all of us probably struggle with as well. It used to be I could call my doctor's office and get an appointment. Now I log into my app. I have to see if there's any time slots available. I have to plug in what kind of appointment I need. And then sometimes it'll go through and sometimes it won't. And so that's something our adults are dealing with. And a lot of our new arrivals, this is a brand new system for them. So we even have lessons on things like that. When I talk about the app, it is an app, so you can download it in the App Store for iOS. You can download it in the Play Store if you have an Android device, but it's also browser-based. So if students have Chromebooks or you have a computer lab at your site, they can launch any browser that you use there, and then they can use the student app. And it's not locked, so if a student logs into an app, some courses and some programs lock them to that device. They'll have a username and password, and they can use any device. They can finish lessons at your program, and then go home on a device that they have there and log in. And then as I mentioned, all of our courses will be available to all of your students. So getting into job skills and career readiness, one of the key things here is, a lot of the institutions that we work with and those that we talked with as we were putting these courses together, they do a fantastic job of preparing students for the knowledge required for jobs of today and tomorrow. So vocational training, a lot of the times they're providing those skills on site. And then, getting ready for a lot of those programs, it's usually a combination of English and math to get them ready. But what they were telling us is there needs to be some transition courses that our app can provide that will assist them in that, optimize their chances of not just getting a job, but keeping a job, making sure that they're familiar with a lot of the soft skills and a lot of the little things, especially in digital literacy, that optimize their chance of of getting ready. So, this career readiness can help ensure success in the workplace. It also teaches students how to manage their careers and equip them to apply the skills that they have learned at your programs. So how do we do that? We have a real focus on these content areas. So especially in our work-life skills, we focus heavily on career and self-development. We'll be able to take a look at our lesson list in a little bit. Communication is a really big one, especially for not just getting the job, but being successful in the job. The soft skills of networking, what does that look like? How do you set a career path and then go after it? We have lessons on critical thinking, new ones on equity and inclusion, leadership, professionalism, showing up to work on time. This is one we worked on with a group of refugees that came from Haiti. And there were a lot of soft skills and cultural norms in the workplace that they just weren't up to speed on. And so by using our app, they were able to be a lot more successful there. And then the digital literacy side with technology, financial literacy, time management, and then personal ones, things like stress management and emotional intelligence, we also cover. So here's a look at our full app. Again, we offer the English, so students can get an assessment. So what we find is in some of your programs, students might actually need a little bit more English and/or math work. So they can take an assessment and get fully upskilled in English. Same thing with the math. Today's focus will be on our skills. So the digital literacy, work-life skills, financial literacy, and then as I mentioned, our health literacy is available in preview. So if you would like to take a look at the first few lessons, it's just not finished. But the nice thing with being a digital product is unlike print where you have to wait till it's done to go to print, with digital products for health literacy, every time a lesson is finished, it'll be live and it'll be available to all of your students. And then we have the test prep. So if any of your students are pursuing HSE or naturalization, that'll be available. Okay, so we'll get started with work-life skills. So, work-life skills is an interesting title that we picked for this course. It's not the name of many courses and programs, but I think you'll see why we called it work-life skills when you see the lesson list. So, if you're not familiar, work-life skills are the soft skills needed for success on the job, at home, and at school. And these are going to include communication, teamwork, self-awareness, and social skills. So a lot of programs in adult ed, the focus is on hard skills, and those hard skills are fantastic to get students ready for the job. And so these are going to be knowing the technical knowledge, the abilities, the skills, but a lot of students may lack the ability to work productively in a group with coworkers, and the work-life skills are going to be what help them advance here. So work-life skills are important on the job, especially with teamwork and communication. Almost every job is going to have you interacting with coworkers, and it's important that you're able to work with them in a productive way. I'm fortunate, I'm in a position where I don't have to work with any really toxic coworkers, but I think all of us have probably been there at one time. And we always go back to this, if communication was there, if we can just coach people up on being, number one, positive in the workplace, and then number two, being a good communicator, being a team player, as they like to say. And so we focus in on that. And then there are some hard skills in there. So creating a resume, interviewing, what it looks like to accept a job offer, counter offers. What if you're balancing multiple job offers? How do you do that in a way that doesn't burn a bridge? So we want students to be aware of what that looks like. Interacting with managers and coworkers. And so this is something we touch on in work-life skills, but also in digital literacy. And so I'm going to interact with Dan very differently than I interact with someone from my cycling club. If I'm emailing Dan, I'm going to be putting together a pretty professional email. Whereas somebody from my cycling club, I can do text speak, I can do jokes, I can send memes. Not all of our students are aware of that. Some of our students, they'll be communicating with coworkers or sometimes a manager at work. And I send you memes. I'm just using you in this example. I'll send Dan jokes and memes, but if I had just started working with Dan, for instance, I would not be sending him text messages that are not complete sentences. I would not be sending him text messages that were inappropriate. And the same goes with coworkers. So especially when you first get to a workplace, you only get one chance to make a first impression. And so we just want to make sure that our students are aware of that and just really optimize their chance of being successful in the short term and the long term. Another big one we focus on is conflict resolution. And so it's inevitable that when you're in a workplace and you're working with a lot of people, conflict does arise. And so it's important that we do that in the right way. I think we've all maybe interacted with someone who didn't really have the conflict resolution. It's a my way or the highway. Sometimes conflicts instantly get escalated. And so the conflict resolution ties deeply into our communication lessons because it's so much more effective if you're an effective communicator, you know how to have conversations, you know how to de-escalate tension. These are soft skills that really do a fantastic job of making sure you're successful in the workplace. So in the job market, they're pretty obvious, but also in the classroom, one of the things we heard a lot from teachers, my students don't show up on time. My students aren't completing lessons on time. And so it's really important that we make them aware of how important that is. The behaviors that you set in the classroom will translate to the behaviors you bring into the workplace. So let's get started with them now. Let's start planning our schedules. Let's show up on time. Let's get our homework done on time. And that way, when we get to the workplace, we've established all of the habits that'll make us successful as we transition. We also focus on two things that are not always covered. Unfortunately, at least for me in high school and a lot of the students I talked to when they were in high school, there was no concept of let's do education planning. So at a young age, when you're in ninth grade, let's put together a roadmap. Let's put together a timeline of what our future looks like. A lot of the students don't even understand the sequence of degrees. So maybe they dropped out of high school. Now they're pursuing HSE. So what does it look like to get a GED? What does a GED qualify me for? If I don't get my GED, what does that mean for courses that I can take at a community college? Once I'm in a community college, what kind of a degree do I get and what does that qualify me for? Can I get a 4-year degree with this? And so education planning is really important for a lot of the adults that we're working with, so they understand that setting goals isn't just something that's arbitrary. We need to set concrete goals so that we know what we have to do today and tomorrow in order to get there. And again, the habits we establish in the classroom are going to translate into habits that we have in our career. So we want them to do the same there. When you get your first job, there's nothing wrong with if somebody says, hey, this is the job and this is the job I'm going to have until the end. That's great, but in today's economy, the current climate, that's just not a reality for most people. And so it's important that the second they get that job, they do the best that they can to optimize their success there. But more importantly, they're looking towards next year, the next 5 years. How do I advance in this current position? Is there an opportunity for me to be promoted? Can I take on managerial roles? And if I do aspire to do that, what does that look like? Do I need to get certain credentials in order to move up in this job in particular? Do I need to meet the right people at this company? Do I need to impress the right people? So for education planning, career planning, and goal setting, we want a lot of our students to do that. And the reason it's really important is most of the adults that we interviewed when we were putting this course together didn't really have any concept of career planning. And what it came down to, it seemed, is a lot of them didn't have the confidence to set those high-level goals, is they just never saw themselves from where they were to be a manager. And so it's important with things like this that the goal setting is something that, as an instructor, I know a lot of you are encouraging this, and in the app, we also are encouraging that. So don't be afraid to set high goals. It doesn't matter where you are today. By putting a roadmap together and putting your dreams on paper, it really helps make those become a reality. Effective writing, this is something we do a lot in our English upgrade course sequence, but it's also something that we touch on in our work-life skills. And then the final one is navigating complex systems. So the workplace, education, those are two complex systems, but then we get into other ones as well. So our approach to work-life skills, we have a full 30-lesson course. We also have it paired with our math and our English. It's all smartphone-based, so they have lessons that are starting out with video. They can scrub, they can pause, they can go from there, and then they'll be able to utilize our courses. So I have a brief, just a brief video demo on workplace cooperation, and then we can move on to our digital literacy and financial literacy. But before we do that, I'll just briefly cover, what makes us different. And so if you're comparing this to other solutions, first one is just going to be the high interest lessons that are engaging. The other one is after the instruction, we have a ton of practice questions. So students instantly get to put what they just learned in the videos to work. So they get ample practice, a lot of practice questions. It's not intimidating though. And so it's not something where they're sitting there, working with a tutor answering questions, which can be a challenge for some of our students. They get to work on their own phone at their own time. There's also automatic course sequencing. So one lesson to the next, we keep them moving. And then you as the instructor, coordinator, director, you can track and monitor all of the student progress, see how they're doing, and go from there. Okay, so this is the full lesson list. Talked about the content areas, but it's important for us to show all of the lessons to the students. The idea behind this, and you saw the entire app, so we show all the courses, we show all the lessons within the course. It's the same psychology of a lot of other social media apps. And so if you go to Netflix, they don't hide things. If you click on a show, they want to let you know that there's 8 seasons, 10 seasons. They want to let you see all the episodes within, how much time they are. They'll give you little overviews, a synopsis of each one. And so it's the same thing here is, students like to see their path. Some apps, if they don't have a lot of content, will hide that. But one of the big ones is students don't like to feel like they're on a never-ending treadmill when they're interacting with digital solutions. They want to know that, hey, I'm on lesson 1. At the end, lesson 30, I see it all. I earn a certificate, and that'll show that I have full mastery of all the content areas. And then we do have print materials. So New Readers Press has a fantastic workbook. So for those of your students that do like to work in an app, but then you also want to provide workbooks, or in some cases, we work with some in corrections that require workbooks. There's some areas where they don't allow access to online materials. We do have a workbook, so students can work through. It has all of the same lessons. Obviously, it doesn't have the songs, video, games, and animation, but it does have the instruction and the practice questions. So we do have a tandem workbook for those that are interested in that. And here's the lesson.
At Mario's Pizza, the employees use teamwork to make sure the job is always done well. Alex and Marina work in the kitchen, while David and Angelie work as servers. They all are skilled in their roles and always trust each other to do a good job. When the restaurant gets busy, they always communicate clearly and respectfully to each other without getting frustrated. Daniela is the manager, who is always motivating the team and helping where she is needed in the restaurant. She reminds the team of the goals they are working towards and rewards them with parties or group events when goals are met. Good teamwork skills will help everyone to work together to the best of their abilities and get the job done.
A good team has teamwork. 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 A good team has teamwork. 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 A good team is dependable. They trust each other to get the job done. A good team has structure. Everyone knows the rules and roles. A good team communicates. People talk to each other with respect.
A good team has leaders that boost morale and motivate.
A good team has teamwork. Teamwork. Teamwork.
A good team has
Teamwork. Teamwork. Teamwork.
Read through this passage, then answer the questions about teamwork.
Okay, because you can see the general format there. So everything starts out with narration. Then we use the music to keep students engaged, brings us back to the Schoolhouse Rock of at least
That's
my childhood.
it? Which
Then
one
they
is
get the
right?
practice questions. So they'll have the questions. They get to answer those. And one of the unique things that you'll see
Alon answered
is
Tina's
every single
question
one of
in
our
a
questions
clear
has built-in
and
feedback
helpful
and
way,
remediation.
which showed
So there's no
good
question where we just move the
communication
students along.
skills.
Every single one of our courses, we're
Can you
recording
answer?
over 10,000 pieces of audio. And that way, if they do get a question incorrect, they instantly get the answer, but not just the answer, an explanation as to why that is the correct answer and why the one that they selected is incorrect. So that was a brief coverage of work-life skills. And now we'll cover our digital literacy. So digital literacy is one of those content areas that has expanded year over year. I think it started out, especially with the North Star standards of being very technical. It was very much based on hardware with computers and focusing on those hard skills for students. It's very much transitioned into more soft skills, almost touching on some of the work-life skills over the last few years. And a big reason for that is those DQ standards coming out from the European Union. And those are going to be topics we'll touch on. Things like digital citizenship. I think a lot of people hear about it, but what does it mean? But then there's a lot of things that all of us deal with every day. So, what is net etiquette, which is critical for a lot of our students, making sure that they understand that anything they do on the internet today can show up in a job search tomorrow, really making sure they protect their online identity. How do they represent themselves? If a HR department is doing a search for you, they can find every idea or topic or view that you've publicly shared on social media. So it's critical. Not all of our students understand that those are not silos. Like these things are not hidden and independent. Everything you do online will follow you. And then there's other ones for self-protection, things like avoiding phishing scams and protecting identity that way. So we'll get into our digital literacy now. So before we do that, we'll touch on, in the job market, it's becoming pretty obvious. When we first started talking about this, this was something we had to communicate a little more strongly how critical it is. But now there really isn't a job that doesn't require proficiency in digital literacy. I can't remember the last time I talked to somebody who wasn't doing scheduling and payroll in an app. Almost everybody's job now requires you to go onto some portal to fill out your personal information so that you can receive payment because all of the financial literacy and all of the financial requirements are online. If you want to put in, requests for time off or you want to see your schedule, it's usually in an app. And so we want to make sure students have all the skills to navigate that. And the world of digital literacy is presenting a lot of new challenges. Digital literacy skills are required for almost every current job, but especially as we look at the landscape ahead, it's really going to be critical for the new jobs, the future jobs that are being created by the massive technological changes that are taking place today. So individuals also have to just learn digital adaptability. And that's one of the things I think a lot of us have learned over the last few years and the last decade is if you were to look at the job market 20 years ago, there was no way to see a lot of the jobs that exist today. And so there are jobs today that we take for granted that were only created by technological change and disruption. And there's a lot of change taking place today, currently, where there will be jobs of tomorrow and jobs of next decades that will only come about because of radical disruption now. So there's really this concept of being understanding that you always have to learn the new tools, the new digital literacy standards. This isn't a static concept. It isn't a static content area. A lot of the English and math lessons, especially in math, if you look at the math requirements that are available today, and then you go back 3 decades, they really haven't changed that much. Whereas digital literacy, we can put together a new 60 lesson course every year, and half of the lessons will be out of date by the time it's ready to change those. So this is a really important one just to drive home that they understand that it's really important to stay up to date on these things. And in the classroom, this is something we've seen a lot, especially over the last 5 or 6 years, is students are finding and consuming a lot more content online. Almost all research is done online. I think I was the last generation in K-8 and high school that learned how to do research in a library, pulling cards, putting together bibliographies based on books. Almost every person in high school that I talk to now, it is completely online. They almost don't use books unless they're forced to for an assignment. Creating digital content is a big requirement for online learning. And this is also something we touch on in financial literacy. A lot of our adults that we talk to that come through adult schools, go through our vocational training. Number one thing, what do they always say that their goal and dream is? It's to be a small business owner. It's to own their own business. And one of the things about owning your own business is you have to be up to date on sales and marketing. You have to be able to create content online to promote your business. You have to understand what a Yelp post and Yelp listing is. You have to have good photos. And so we have a lot of lessons there. So for those that are going into small business or they already are doing that and they want to open up online shops, they need to be aware of those things. And then digital communication and collaboration is required. Does anybody work for a school that has registration that isn't online? Are students even able to register for courses now without logging into some kind of an online portal? You do? Yeah. Okay. Okay. And where do you teach or work? Okay. So you're right by, close. And then you in the back? Okay. Well, this is one of the first times I've heard that in a while. So that's okay. Okay. Fantastic. And which school is that? Okay. Fantastic. So it's good that that's still an option because it's important for a lot of our students that don't have the digital literacy skills before they get into your programs, because that is a massive challenge for them to say, hey, you want to go to school, log in and figure it out without some kind of a tutor or coach or guidance system. So it's fantastic that your programs are still offering that to the students. Okay, so our approach to let's see here to digital literacy is high interest, engaging lessons. We have practice after every single one. So this is a full 60 lesson course. We have lessons on safety, privacy, net etiquette. We teach newer skills, and so some things we all probably take for granted. But again, this is focused on getting into the workplace. Something like cloud versus local. If I'm collaborating on a document with all of you, I might say, hey, I just worked on it, but it's saved on my desktop and now you have no access to it. And I'm asking you to work on it collaboratively. So it's important to know when you have something local versus when you want to have something in the cloud that you can have collaboratively, or more important, even it's on a personal level. If you're working on homework on a personal device at home and you want to be able to access it elsewhere, I'm doing this right now. I just log into Canva. I used to have, we always used to carry around with like a thumb drive and you have a PowerPoint doc and you plug it in. Now everything's online. So I just log into my Canva account. I have my slides ready to go. So cloud versus local is a critical one. I think another big one, not as important for everybody, but I think especially those that are new, are share versus send. Maybe I'm recording this entire session and so I have this, maybe 1.5 gigabyte MP4 file. People are going to get pretty upset if I'm emailing them directly that file. It's much easier if I save it somewhere in the cloud. I get a share link, and then everybody can view it or download it when it best fits their schedule. And then things like group collaboration. We go over a lot of group collaboration tools in digital literacy. As I mentioned, it's aligned to ISTE, the DQ standards, and North Star. Same automatic sequencing, so students get progressed through self-paced. And then it's integrated into our complete adult ed system, so students can get fully up to speed in all of our courses, and you can track and monitor their progress. So as you can see, this is a much bigger course than our work-life skills. There's just a lot more content to cover. So we get started assuming the student is starting at zero. So the basics of the internet, computers, phones, networks, and getting into things like App Store, search. And then we start getting into more of the DQ standards. So the soft skills of trust and validity, getting into content types. The second bar is where we start getting into more hard skills. And so that's going to be things getting into, Google Docs and Microsoft Word, Google Sheets and Excel. And so working through spreadsheets and understanding how those work, the text creation there. And then we get into the next. So our green bar, these are going to be a lot of things that you're probably not teaching in your class. Might not be critical for the classroom, but we find them critical for students to start brainstorming. Again, dream big for what kind of job you'd like to have or what you'd like to do. So video creation, which is huge because everybody wants to be an influencer now, game creation and design process. For those that are pursuing that, we want them to understand what it looks like for coding and programming and website creation. So if I'm starting a business and I have the idea that I want to sell these water bottles, it's one thing to create a website. So they need to understand that that's my front end, that's my sales and marketing. I have images, I have video. But then if people want to start creating accounts, they want to log in, they want to save things to their cart, then you need to have a back end. You need to have a database that stores all of these things. What does a database look like? How does it integrate with my front end? And how does that help me with my business? So a lot of us interact with front end platforms all the time. Every day we're interacting with back-end systems, but most of us just don't think about it. But every account you have, every username and password you have, every time data is being stored or passed between two different servers, you're interacting with the back end of someone's system. So something, if you're not interacting with it daily, it doesn't matter. But if you do want to start a small business or it is something you want to do, we want to make students aware of how that works and what it looks like. Then we get into the communication side of things. One of the surprising things for us is when we talk to our adults, especially our younger adults, 29's easy. They text every day, whether it's WhatsApp or iMessage or whatever their standard messaging platform is. I still email every day, but a lot of our young adults, they'll tell me that they might not send an email in a month. Some of them don't even have email accounts. So as they get into a new job or a new workplace, if all of a sudden those jobs are heavily reliant on email communication, we want to make sure that they're not the ones that are sending those, reply all to everybody in the organization. This is what a BCC is. This is what a CC is. These are little things that I think we all take for granted, but we want to make sure they're fully up to speed on those things. And then the gold bar, we're going to start getting into more of some of the ethical and self representation lessons. So the online relationships, collaboration, net etiquette. So how do I conduct myself on a social media site, in a forum, on a workplace setting? In school, we ask a lot of our students to participate, for instance, like in a Blackboard conversation. And so making sure that our language and the way we present ourselves there, this will be read by the teacher and this will be read by other students. Hashtags and handles, we get up into the purple. Again, these are more of the DQ standards, so the soft skills. And then the blue bar at the top, this is one that we are already looking at changing and updating because these things are constantly changing for us. So evaluating news sources, this is one that we're constantly looking to update. Digital economy is a big one. So if you want to sell water bottles now, yes, you can go and rent a space downtown or in a shopping mall if they still exist where you live. In most cases, though, you're going to want to sell them online. And so you set up a Shopify account, and what does that look like? What are the tax implications of setting up an online site? How do I get this started? Artificial intelligence, this is something that we created before ChatGPT, and then instantly it's like, hey, this entire industry is changing. We have to constantly update this. Virtual reality, this is one that started out looking like it was going to be a ChatGPT thing. I don't know if everybody remembers when Meta came out with their headset, and then Apple came out with their headset, and then nobody used them. And so there are still some practical applications for augmented reality, but virtual reality doesn't seem to be taking off the way that they thought it would. But it is still something we touch on because I know there are some vocational training programs that use virtual reality for introductions to training. Some of the driving ones or some of the tool-based, you can work through and actually see what things look like. So it is important for students to learn. And then on the personal side, why it's important to manage online calendars. So for me personally, this is big because when I have like a written calendar, which I do have, it's on my desk at home. And if I show up to a conference like this without a digital calendar, I'm in trouble. And it's important to know how to manage that, making sure you're putting things in. And the big one for me is navigating time zones. And so living in California, working with a team that's mostly on the East Coast, our development team for the learning management system, we have a lot of workers in Pakistan. And there's some really weird time zones where certain times of the year, they'll be like 11 hours and 30 minutes ahead. And so having a calendar where I just plug my time in and then it just updates, I could not live without that. If it was on paper, I would mess it up every single day. Travel, so the benefits of booking travel, which again, one of those industries that there used to be travel agents and you could go and talk to them and have them put together an itinerary for you. Almost everything is online. So this entire trip, even though it's a business trip, you still have to go in, you have to pick flights, you have to pick a hotel, pick a room and pay for things that way. And then the final one, which ties into work-life skills, is job search. And so it's one of those memes that you get now with younger kids, but they like to joke that all of the older people tell them, oh, just go to any institution, you drop off your resume, shake a hand, and they're going to hire you. It's like, that's just not the way it is anymore. You have to put together your resume, and you almost always have to apply online to these places. And so that makes it a lot more competitive because they're getting lots of resumes. Not everybody's being honest on their resume. And now as it ties back into lesson 54 with artificial intelligence, once you have your resume, you can just feed the ChatGPT window the job listing and say, I'd like you to edit my resume perfectly for this job listing. Now you have a brand new resume that's perfectly tailored to the job post. But so does everybody else. So it's an interesting time for HR. How do you figure out who is actually qualified for a job and who has, which is all of them, perfectly tailored resumes for your job posting? So again, these are just lessons that make students aware of everything that's going on, and they'll have a better understanding of how to pursue and go after this. So yeah, 1 through 59 of the lessons. And I didn't mention this at the beginning, but every single one of our Learning Upgrade courses, 1 through 59 is self-paced. There's no timer. They go through on their own. Lesson 60 is the final challenge, and that'll be a cumulative test of everything that they learned. And then we also have the print materials here. So students will be able to utilize print materials in the workbook, and they will be able to work on everything if you do need a print material and not an app-based one. So I'm actually going to skip the video for digital literacy. I want to make sure I have time to cover financial literacy here. But for financial literacy, this is one of our really important courses, because what we were finding, students go through our English and our math, then they start on our career readiness, and now they're getting jobs. And as all of us know in the United States, what's the number one thing that happens to our low-income adults when they get their first job? All of the predatory financial people start coming after them. Let's get them hooked into high-interest loans. Let's get them on payday loans. Let's get them into a car dealership, and they're going to get a new car, and I'm going to sell them on a 10-year loan at 20% interest. It's very important that as they start making money, as they start making more money for those that are looking for higher paying work, that they also understand the pitfalls that can come if they aren't, aware of this. The other one is on savings. What does it look like for somebody that's never had a retirement plan to start contributing? And what does that look like with compound interest if you start young versus if you're starting when you're 50? So financial literacy is that ability and the knowledge to understand and demonstrate financial skills. So the big ones that you'll find in almost every financial literacy course are going to be the basics of earning, which is what we cover, for career readiness. That's what students are focused on. Let's earn more money. Saving, that's the difference between what you spend and what you're putting away. With that savings, you want to invest. If you just let it sit in your bank account, as we all feel painfully right now with inflation, is if you're not saving at a high interest, you're not investing, you're losing a lot of money with inflation right now. What does it look like to borrow? So we do this on the personal level, so personal credit cards, home loans, but we also do it on the business side. So if you're a small business owner, what does a business loan look like? Who's responsible for that? If I'm in a partnership, Dan and I want to start a business and we take out a business loan, and all of a sudden the business isn't doing so well and I disappear, does that mean I'm off the hook for this? No. And so we want to make sure they're aware of what a business loan looks like versus a personal loan. Budgeting, and then asset protection. And these principles are going to provide a nice roadmap for sound money management, and then also, more importantly, a foundation for a healthy financial future, which is our goal for every single one of our students. And these skills mean having the confidence, knowledge, and skills to make financial decisions that promote financial self-sufficiency, stability, and well-being. Okay, so, why is it important? I think it's, natural for all of us to know exactly why it's important. We all intuitively know why it's important. But here are some of the nitty gritty on it. So, our goal is people with financial literacy aren't going to be as vulnerable to fraud, to Ponzi schemes, friends saying, hey, I have this great online idea. All you need to do is invest your $1,000 bonus and I'll take off and I'll pay you back like 10x. How do we avoid predatory lending, payday loans, high interest credit cards? High risk investments. This is one that a lot of my friends got burned on. If anybody has friends that got really into crypto, I'm a little bit guilty myself. I drank the Kool-Aid on that and I put a little bit of money and it disappeared. And some of my friends put a lot more in than I did. I didn't learn from the high risk investment lesson. I am guilty of that. So it's important to know sometimes if it sounds too good to be true, it actually is too good to be true. And you need to focus on dependable investments that are going to provide a lower rate of return, no doubt, but it's usually a guaranteed rate of return. Financial literacy helps people achieve expensive goals. So let's say I want to send my kids to college. I need to buy a new work truck. I'd like to go from renting to buying a home. we need to start saving. So what does that look like? And financial products are becoming a lot more widespread. So I studied finance in my undergrad, and back then it was very difficult to be a personal investor. If you wanted to sit at home and open up and manage your own portfolio, it was a lot of work. Now you can download an app and you can do it in about 10 minutes. If you have a bank account, you can be your own personal investor. Fantastic for a lot of people, but if you don't have the skills and you don't have the knowledge, you can lose a lot of money really quickly. In 2001, Federal Reserve of San Francisco reported that only 20% of purchases were made with cash. That number has gone down since then. So it used to be a cash-based society. It's turning into a cash-free society. So what does that mean? Everybody wants to make spending frictionless. You go onto Amazon, you click buy now. You go to the store, you double click that side of your phone and a mobile payment takes care of it. Usually you don't even see the total. And so by making transactions frictionless, you are going to be spending a lot more money and a lot more quickly. So we need to be very aware of that. People with financial literacy are less likely to take on unmanageable debt. And this results in less bankruptcy, better credit scores. It results in fewer foreclosures and evictions and less tax delinquency. And then the other one is the Federal Reserve found that a quarter of Americans have no retirement savings. So that's critical, especially as we see sometimes what's going on with Social Security. Hopefully people have a secure retirement when that time comes. 50%, so 1 in 2, you go out there and look, lack funds to cover 3 months of wages. So if they did get laid off, 3 months, that's not a long time. Your healthcare premiums, your rent, putting food on the table. And so what do people have to do? They put it on a credit card, usually high interest, and that accrues over time. Before they know it, they're buried in debt. And then 37% don't have $2,000 for an emergency. 43%, this was one that seemed ridiculously high to me, but have used payday loans, pawn shops, and other expensive financial services. So our goal is to get your students off of that track and onto one of financial success. So we cover planning, earning, spending, savings, borrowing, and then also those really important small business ones. Here's the full lesson list. Very similar. Students move through 1 through 29, and then they get their final challenge where they have the cumulative test. Pretty straightforward here. We get into the basics at the beginning. Then we get into a lot of the credit and borrowing, differences between renting a home, buying a home, renting and buying vehicles, insurance, work benefits. A lot of students haven't had benefits at the workplace, and they might be getting a first job where they do get things like healthcare and a retirement plan. College finance, for those that are in your programs looking to go to a 4-year institution, it's not cheap. It's very expensive, and we want to make sure they understand that they know what they're getting into. A lot of the students that go through 4 years, they get a degree, they are $80,000 in debt. When you talk to them, they didn't know what they were getting into. In no other domain of our society do we allow 18-year-olds to borrow that kind of money. And yet when it comes to college, sign here. You'll get a cosigner, usually a parent. Sometimes they don't understand the terms, but we allow them to bury themselves in debt without always understanding it. So it's important that your students do. Before they sign, they need to know what they're signing. And then the retirement, we talked about small business. In there, we get into record keeping and financial statement, business loans, sales and marketing, and then debt repayment. So we have detailed lessons. These ones, in a lot of cases, we need to make sure our students go through our math upgrade first. If they're not fully up to speed on math, it can be difficult to calculate a lot of the premiums on certain insurance plans, or if we're doing compounding interest lessons. For students that are ready, they can jump in and start working right away, and it'll be a fantastic lesson where they really understand everything. So I have one course here.
Let's plan your finances. 50, 30, 20. Got to spend your money wisely. 50, 30, 20. Got to spend your money wisely.
Take 50% of what you earn and spend it on what you need. Like paying for your car and your home and your bills and your food and your groceries. Then 30% of what you earn goes into what you want. Like entertainment, buying clothes, or fancy restaurants. The last 20% is set aside for your financial goals. Savings for an emergency fund. Pay debts and investments. Now you're done.
50, 30, 20. Got to spend your money wisely. 50, 30, 20. Got to spend your money wisely. Yeah.
It's a pretty straightforward lesson there. Take your monthly earnings, break it down, 50% for your needs, 30% for the wants, and then putting that 20% away for your savings. So that's the Breakthrough app. I do have quite a few other slides in here just because I will share this Canva link. So if you want to get into our English, math, our ESL solutions, ABE solutions, there'll be videos on there, also detailed things on the courses. So feel free, you can share this link with anyone at your school, and it'll go through all of the other details on that. So with that, I'll wrap up just with a look at everything. So if you do have students that are maybe just getting into your program, they can start out with our English and math. We do also have TOEFL IELTS for those that need to take language proficiency test prep. We have the HSE test prep, and then we have our career readiness. So students can go through all of our courses from beginning to the very highest level. It will improve their earning potential along with what they're doing at your site. And most importantly, it'll optimize their chance of success as they begin this new part of their life. So again, all of you here in person and then also online will be able to get a free pilot. For those that are online, on the follow-up slides, I'm going to show a QR code that you can scan. If you're not able to scan the QR code, you can just go to learningupgrade.com, and we have a pilot request link in the main menu. So you'll be able to do it that way. And for those in person, we have a paper form, or you can fill it out using the QR code. But you'll get free access to the app for as many students as you need, as many teachers at your site. You'll be able to log into the learning management system here. Belen, who's in person here, we do the training. And so we'll be able to set up a quick Zoom session, even if you only have 10 or 15 minutes. Most of our sessions, though, are 30 to 60 minutes to provide time for questions. We can get into more details, but if you're short on time, no problem doing a quick one. We'll help you get your class set up, help you get students enrolled, and you'll be able to track and monitor all of their progress from there. So the way it'll work is we're starting training today. Month one, we'll focus on account creation for you and for your students. The students can get enrolled in the courses and start learning. You can track and monitor their progress, and then we can evaluate their success and their growth at the end there. And for those that, most traditionally, you are all in adult education. So most of us will be working on a blended model. You have students in your classrooms or students on site, and then Learning Upgrade is supplemental. It's instruction time that they have at home or when they're not working at your site. But if you do have ideas for reaching out in your communities or through your organizations, we support 2-gen learning, so no problem getting students of all ages enrolled. We can help get set up with learning circles. We do a lot of PD on using WhatsApp to maintain communication and get students practicing what they've learned with each other there. We also work with a lot of libraries that have long waiting lists and not enough tutors, and so we can help you address your waiting list times using Learning Upgrade. And then if any of you are fully remote, we can always help with that as well. So flexible deployment models, and we can cover the details in our training. So as I mentioned, free to start, affordable to grow, and we will wrap up here. And let me go back to that first slide. And so we, sure, yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Grab your mic if you don't mind.
Oh yeah, otherwise the people online can't hear.
No, I just wanted to say, because of the digital literacy course that he was talking about, and the last one, the last lesson was on job search, right? And I think most of us, like me, who work, feel like, we're staying pretty caught up on digital literacy because the systems we use keep changing and everything. Last time I had to hire someone, who, by the way, is sitting in the room. Hi, Belen. We posted this job on LinkedIn, and we had to shut it down very quickly. We collected over 200 applications in a very short period of time. And then it's my job to hire someone quickly. How am I going to sort through 200 applications? I'll tell you what I did, and it's the first time I tried it. I subscribed to ChatGPT. I took all of these resumes, turned them into one great big PDF. I told ChatGPT to go through these 200 and some applications and looked for these key phrases and terms that were important to me. I used that to narrow it down to about 50. And then I went through those 50 and narrowed it down to about 20. And then I started scheduling interviews and stuff like that. My goodness, digital literacy is so important to the job search now. And for someone like me who hasn't been in the job market lately, I would never have known that.
Thank you. That's ChatGPT chose you. And so for those of you that are here, Belen has pilot forms. And so if you'd like to get started with a free pilot, you can fill those out. We'll get them uploaded, and then I'll do my best to get those out to you early next week. I'll be flying home tonight, so hopefully Thursday, Friday, I can get those uploaded. And then everybody will receive an email with your username and password on Monday, Tuesday. Again, these are unlimited. It'll ask for kind of like the number of students you serve. That doesn't have to be your whole program. It's really just how many would you be looking at on the pilot. So if you want to have 200 students, 500 students, it's not a hard figure. So don't worry. It's you can just fill that out later, and then we'll be able to get you set up. And then Belen or I will be reaching out after that. If you would like to set up additional training, or maybe you're like, hey, this is going to be for 10 people with me, but I have a teacher at my site that would like to utilize it with others, then we'll be reaching out with an email where we can take care of those details.
Question I can't answer.
Sure.
I'm not sure if you can either, but they want to know about the test prep courses,
Sure.
specifically the TOEFL course.
Uh-huh.
And do you know how successful it is for people who take it and then go on to take the actual test?
Yeah, we haven't done a white paper on TOEFL, but we did one on IELTS. So we work with the Aga Khan Development Network and support about 7,000 Afghan refugees that were displaced when the Taliban took back over. And so those students took our English assessment, went through our full English up through English Upgrade 6. Then they took our IELTS, and they had 92% were at an NRS level 1. And then in the first 6 months, we were able to bring that down to 16%. So almost everybody was NRS 2 at that point. But more importantly, students that were ready for the IELTS test were 21% of the cohort, and they were like 0.5% at the beginning. So first and foremost, getting students ready to get to that level, absolutely documented success there. And then for those that passed IELTS, I want to say almost every single person did. So absolutely, whoever asked that question, feel free to send me an email, drew@learningupgrade.com, and I'd be more than happy to get you the details of that. And then I can also send you a link to the ESL presentation that I did on Monday. And so I can give you more details on our ESL courses and what that would look like for your program.
I'll type your email in the chat if you repeat it.
Yes, it's Drew, DREW, @learningupgrade.com. I wish there was a Hoover business card you could just plug into the chat there. And then this is the QR code on the screen. So for those that are attending online, if you're on a secondary device and you have your mobile device handy, just open up the camera app and it'll scan it. You'll see a little link. You'll click on that and it'll open up a web-based or a browser-based pilot form. You can fill that out and it'll go directly to us. And again, we'll be able to get those processed for you. So feel free to use that QR code. And again, if you can't do that, maybe you're using your single device, the only device you have, feel free, go to learningupgrade.com and then click on pilot request in the main menu. Sure.
And you just need to repeat something. Michael says, any high-set content?
Yes, so we do have GED and HiSET test prep. And so the way that works is, most of our students are not ready now. So they will go through our English and math and then take our GED HiSET prep. But if you do have students that are, preparing to take the test, or maybe they've taken the subtest and they're a few points away, yeah, absolutely. We have GED and HiSET prep. They can take those courses. And there we also have some really good success. So that was the talk I did on another one on Monday. And so, yeah, I can share that link with you. If you want to send me an email, I can send you a link to those slides. Or more importantly, for any of you just set up, we can do a quick Zoom session, and then I'll be able to show you the slides and the success, and then how to utilize our GED and or HiSET courses to prepare your students. Sure. Yeah, if you'd prefer to use the QR code as opposed to the paper sheet, no problem at all. All right, so I know we're at full time. I appreciate everybody for attending the second to last, I think the penultimate, they'll call it, session of the conference. I hope everyone has safe travel home and enjoyed their stay in Dallas. And for those that are online, thank you for joining online. Appreciate you taking the time to join us today. And again, feel free to reach out, comments, questions. If you want to set up additional Zooms, go over any of our courses that we didn't cover today, I'm always more than happy to do that. So I'm going to sign off here, and everyone have a good time. Bye.